And all of a sudden, this feeling just like burst into me and filled up my body. This warmth, this magic, this wonder, and this feeling just filled me up, like completely filled me up. The best way I could describe it was that like there was this feeling that had been injected into me, and this feeling was all I needed. Nothing else mattered. Nothing else was needed. Allow me to tell you about the story of when I was living from true fulfillment, wholeness. So how this started was I was in Thailand and I was staying in a 30-story building, condominium. It was a really nice place. It was newly built. I was doing really well within my business. I was doing attachment style coaching. I was feeling very comfortable. But there was some part of me that, even though I had built up some financial success, I had a daily routine, I had this really nice apartment, there was some part of me that was still just like missing something. And that missing something is a feeling I've felt pretty much my whole life. And for a long time, when I tried to dig into that a bit more, a lot of the answers I would get revolved around spirituality and how it's because I had this desire to get material things, right? That I wouldn't be fulfilled or sustained until I had gotten these things. But I knew that wasn't true, in the sense of I wasn't trying to gain this fulfillment through external or material things. As a matter of fact, a lot of my journey up until that point revolved around building internal stability, following what I called back then my true self, and aligning my external world with the internal pull or flow from that true self. But anyway, main point of it was I had achieved in a lot of these areas where people normally would say would bring fulfillment, and there was still a lack of that. I was also in a place where internally I was feeling very confident and like sure of myself and like I was being authentic. So I really didn't know where else to look for this quote unquote fulfillment. I tried it the material way, I tried it the internal like self-introspection way, and I felt quite stuck. And because of that, I was standing in my apartment on the 22nd floor of this building, doom scrolling, trying to avoid that discomfort I was feeling around the fact that everything was going well, yet I still felt something was missing or there was an emptiness. And all of a sudden, I felt like dizzy or wobbly. And at first I thought I'd stood up too quickly and therefore like my head was spinning or something like that. But then it got more intense where my legs started feeling like wobbly and shaky. And then I had a bit more of a scary thought where I was like, oh no, what if I'm like sick or I'm having like a heart attack or something like that, right? And then my whole body started shaking left and right. And I realized that it wasn't my body that was moving, but it was the building. And I started to see the walls shaking from side to side, swaying from side to side. And I had a sliding door in the middle of my apartment that was also starting to slide back and forth. And then I wondered, wait, is the building actually shaking and swaying? What's going on? And then I heard cracks. And I started to see the walls and the roof of my apartment cracking and pieces of the wall and the roof falling down. And that's when I realized, and where it was kind of confirmed with for me, that this building was swaying and cracking, therefore it must be on its way to falling down. And as soon as I realized that, it's like my heart just dropped into my stomach. Not like feeling sick, but just this drop. And everything became super quiet in my head. And it was like I was there in that present moment in a way I'd never been there before. And my first instinct was to like run outside. I walked into the corridor of this condo I was staying in, and I looked down this long passageway, and I just saw the four corners of this passageway sort of bending and swaying and cracking, and pieces of the ceilings and walls falling. And again, I was like, oh shit, this building is coming down. So I ran to the nearest fire escape, and it was when I reached the top of the steps and I was about to start running down that the thought came into my head, or the realization came into my head, where there's a very real possibility or chance that this building collapses while I'm inside, and therefore I would die. Now, up until that point, and what I know goes through a lot of other people's minds, is that the idea of death is not really a tangible thing. You might think about it, you might make up these like interesting stories in your head about how you could potentially die, or like what you would do in that kind of situation or anything like that. But until you're in that situation and you're experiencing it, and you are faced with a very real, very tangible possibility of death, you just can't really fathom it until then. And in that moment, that's what hit me. I was like, this could literally be it. I could be dead, this building could collapse, and I'm like crushed, and that's it. And because I was about to run down 22 flights of stairs, and I technically had nowhere else to go, my mind was almost forced into a position where it had to accept that if this building decided to completely just like collapse and destructuralize and so whatever, like there was nothing I could do. I was fucked. So unconsciously, I like accepted that I could die. And the presence that I felt earlier became a bit more intense. And then I started to feel this very real feeling, a very intense feeling in my chest that then spread out throughout my body. Now I'll come back to that in a bit because that's important. But anyway, I made my way down the stairs, running down 22 flights of stairs. Each time I got to a lower level, people were coming out of the fire escape, running down, people were screaming. There was a lady in front of me with like a baby, and she was holding the baby was crying. And the weirdest part for me in that experience was that because I was so present, because my mind was like quiet, I was running, and I was running fast, but I was still so aware of everybody else's experience as they were also running down the stairs, to the point where this lady was in front of me holding this baby, so she couldn't run as fast, and I didn't want to overtake her because of how that might make her feel more doomed. And at one point I also like told her to give me the baby, and I took the baby and I was running down with the baby so she could go faster. So what was weird to me when I like looked at that afterwards was like how calm I was and how still full of like empathy and stuff I was. I understand it now, and that's something I'll get to too. But anyway, we make it to the bottom of the stairs, and this building hasn't collapsed. And we get outside, and everybody's like freaking out still because they're like processing what just happened. Turns out it was like an earthquake that happened in Thailand. It was in April of 2025. A really big earthquake. But we're at the bottom and people are like throwing up, people are crying. And still my mind was just like empty. And I was just sitting there trying to process. Anyway, fast forward, eventually they said it was safe to go back up. I went up, grabbed some stuff, left, went to a hotel. There was no way I was staying in that apartment. That night, while my mind was still quiet, I gave myself some time to sit and just process it. And I wanted to go through it and really like, yeah, I don't know, I was just pulled to try and understand it or try and internally go through it. And my mind was still really quiet, which allowed me to tap more into my intuition. What back then I called my true self, where I was able to follow certain pulls or certain strong feelings that felt more true or good. And I meditated, and I got into a really deep meditation, and I just had this pull to like go on social media. And I won't go too deep into this part because it can be quite difficult to understand unless you've experienced it. But basically, I got taken down like a rabbit hole on social media where certain profiles that I'd never seen before just drew me in. And then their friends drew me in. And then certain actions they were doing drew me in. And then at the same time, all these limiting beliefs were coming up in my head trying to stop me from following those pulls. But because of the work I've done around belief shifting and internal subconscious space and everything, I was able to like let go of them and continue following that pull. And eventually, I found myself on this bachata dance video, which is like a Latin type of dance. And I don't know, I couldn't understand it at the time, but there was just something about this dance that was beautiful. And this specific video was two girls dancing, one leading, one following. And at a certain part of the dance, there was this moment where the leader put her arm underneath the other girl's arm, almost like this. And then this follower was like turned around facing the other way, so she couldn't see the leader. And the leader stroked her own hand. So this was her hand underneath the follower's arm. She stroked her own hand. And as she did this on her own hand, the follower just somehow knew to like sway her butt back and forth at the same exact rhythm and pace. And something about that just clicked. And all of a sudden, this feeling just like burst into me and filled up my body. This warmth, this magic, this wonder. And this feeling just filled me up, like completely filled me up. And I remember the belief, or this memory came up in me of when I was a kid, where I'd always like stared out of windows or like looked at the world a certain way, and I always like thought or believed that there was some type of magic in the world. There was something special. There was some type of secret or some type of key to like find and unlock this like secret or magic of the world. And that moment right there completely confirmed it for me. And it's this is the important part, it's not only because of that action, it's because that feeling I felt while watching that video was the exact same feeling I had when I was at the top of the stairs and I believed I was going to die. At first, my mind wanted to believe that that feeling I had at the top of the stairs was fear. But I've done enough work in the psychological space, the emotion space, where it was not the same as fear. The way it felt, the way it like felt in my body, the way my body reacted to it, all of that, it was not the same as fear. And this moment where I was watching this bachata video that like I was pulled towards down this intuitive like path through like a really deep meditation confirmed it for me. I was like, no, this feeling is something else. Because if it was fear, why will I be feeling it while watching it like a bachata video? And for the next 4 days, that feeling was so strong in me and so alive in me. The best way I could describe it was that like there was this feeling that had been injected into me, and this feeling was all I needed. Nothing else mattered. Nothing else was needed. And I don't mean it didn't matter as in like it was like meaningless or like useless, but that feeling alone, I could like live off of it. It could sustain me. And along with that, my mind was quiet, which was awesome too. But those were almost like two separate things, where my mind was quiet, but this feeling that was filling me up was something else. And I had no fear. And it was as if I was like fully aligned with who I was really meant to be, or who I really was, what I really am. And for those 4 days, that feeling filled me, but then also like expressed out of me. Like I built a whole like AI GPT to like help people get back to that feeling, which is also the basis of this YouTube channel. I also had no fear when interacting with other people, and it's almost as if I was speaking through that feeling, where I was just 100% my authentic self, my real true self, and people were like drawn to that. People loved that. It like opened people up. Or if people really had fears going on, it might like intimidate them or scare them, but like I could also then see that if they did react in a negative way, it wasn't because of me. Because again, I was fulfilled. I was whole. I didn't mind. It was just a confirmation to me that we're not feeling that same feeling. We're not open to the same channel. And just by the way, previous to that, like I really struggled in social situations. I had a lot of fears around it. But this feeling just like opened me completely. So it was as if this feeling that I was able to tap into, that I was able to live from, not only fulfilled me and nourished me, but then also radiated out of me, and like I could use to express certain things, actions, so on and so forth, in certain ways that were really impactful on the world around me. Now, unfortunately, after those 4 days, my mind, my ego started rebuilding itself. And it took this beautiful experience and it turned it into fear. And I won't go too deep into this, but after that, I had a lot of like trauma stored physically in my body, to the degree that if I went onto any floor of a building that wasn't the first floor, I would feel the fear in my feet and my legs where I originally felt that sort of wobble, and it would just like send my mind and my body into a full-on panic attack. And I would have to leave the building, or would have to sit down, or things like that. And it took me a while to sort of work through that, but it was an important piece or part of the journey. But what I understood, and what I understand now, and what I'd like to leave with you as a source of hope, inspiration, as a message, is that I know that that experience was to give me a peek behind the curtain, was to show me what it would be like when I am in a full alignment, when I have released resistances from my mind and my body. Those are all things I'll go in another video. And also being in full alignment and truth with my truest self, and therefore showing up in the world as what I really am, who I really am, and therefore also being connected to, or in alignment with, Source, God, universe, whatever you want to call it. And over the many months that I've spent integrating that experience and understanding it and working on it, and I've also been at this whole psychology internal world game for the past, since I was 15, and everything has culminated and come together now. And I know how to get back to that state. I know how to live from that state. Parts of this video, I have been speaking from that state. The way I go out in public and interact with people, I do from that state. So what I'd like to let you know, and if this video has resonated, if you have touched that space too, and you're looking for a way to get back to it, to live from it again, I would like to invite you to subscribe to my channel, because I will be doing exactly that. I will be teaching you, helping you understand what it was, and also how to get back to it, how to live from it, how to be in alignment with it. So if you're feeling pulled, if you are feeling tingles, if you are remembering that feeling because of me speaking about it, anything like that, that is your invitation, that is your sign. If you have any other questions, thoughts, or feelings, feel free to drop them in the comments. Otherwise, I'll see you in the next video.